Let's quickly revise this chapter better. So the first thing that I said, overheads are indirect expenses which are not directly identifiable with the end product. Under manufacturing expenses, we divide all expenses which are into direct and indirect. Direct expenses ka sum total is called as prime cost, and all the other indirect expenses which are collectively will be your manufacturing overheads. You will also have overheads as such, guys, under the other categories of expenses: selling and distribution, office and administration, guys. You will have no classification of direct and indirect. All the expenses incurred as such, guys, will always be indirect in nature. So the first thing that we started off with is the classification of overheads. We divide overheads on the basis of functions or activities as such, guys, into manufacturing overheads, selling and distribution overheads, office and administration overheads. All right, that is based on the function or activity. Selling and distribution, maybe we segregated expenses into selling and then into distribution. Distribution beta is basically involved in transferring product as such beta to the customer, guys, or the consumer. Selling overhead, guys, is making the basically, guys, your selling efforts as such, guys, marketing product. On the basis of nature of expenditure, we have divided overheads, guys, into fixed expenses, variable expenses, guys, and semi-variable. Fixed overheads ka example was factory rent. Variable overhead, guys, I said electricity expenditure as such beta, and then semi-variable expenditure mein, guys, so semi-variable mein electricity as such, guys. Variable mein beta you can talk about all the tools and consumables, guys, of the machineries. All right, and then beta we spoke about elements of cost. On the basis of elements, guys, we divide them into indirect materials, indirect employee costs, and indirect expenses. So the primary objective of this chapter as such beta was to allocate overheads as such, guys, to the end product. I said instead of you directly transferring overheads to the end product as such, guys, first we will transfer overheads to different departments of an organization. For this purpose, all the departments at the factory as such beta will be segregated into production departments and service departments. Production departments are directly engaged in manufacturing activities. Service departments, guys, only provide service, support service as such, guys, to your production departments. Examples of service departments, beta, you have repairs and maintenance department, there is stores, there is canteen, guys, and all other departments. Very good. So for this purpose of transferring overheads, guys, to the end product, I said first there'll be primary distribution of overheads, then there'll be secondary distribution of overheads, and then there's going to be absorption of overheads. Primary distribution of overheads, guys, is transferring overheads to different departments first. Under this, two things: allocation and apportionment. Allocation is the word used beta when expenses are directly identifiable with a specific product. Apportionment is the word used when overheads are commonly incurred for multiple departments. So for apportionment, you will need a reasonable basis to transfer the expenditure, guys. There's a factory rent can be done on the basis of floor area. Depreciation can be done on the basis of value of machinery, guys. Insurance expenditure can be done on the basis of value of machinery. Rates and taxes again on the basis of floor area, guys. Lighting expenditure agar hai, it can be done on the basis of number of light points. Electricity expenditure agar hai, to it will be on the basis of kilowatt hours or horsepower multiplied by machine hours. If there are any other sundry expenses, indirect expenses, guys, that will be done first preference on the basis of machine hours or labor hours. If they are not available, then we will do it on the basis of direct wages. This is for apportionment. Once expenses have been transferred, guys, to service departments and production departments, we know that we will not be able to absorb overheads as such, guys, from service departments to the end product. This is where as such, guys, you'll perform secondary distribution of overheads or reapportionment. Secondary distribution or reapportionment is transferring overheads back from service departments to production departments. For the purpose of this, guys, there are different methods. This all depends on how the service departments are rendering service to production departments and to each other. If there is no service rendered by service departments, guys, to the other service departments, then beta we will use direct method, guys. Under direct method as such beta, whatever are the amount of overheads incurred by service departments will be directly apportioned to production departments. Then beta there is non-reciprocal method. Non-reciprocal method beta is where one service department is rendering service to the other while the other service department does not render service to the first service department. Non-reciprocal, also known as step method as such, guys. This is the only method where the order of apportionment is important. As in, you will have to identify which department is to be reapportioned first. After that beta comes reciprocal method. Reciprocal method is where there's mutual service beta rendered by service departments to each other. Under reciprocal method guys, again we have repeated redistribution, trial and error method and simultaneous equation method. Repeated redistribution mein guys, you will have to keep transferring service department costs as such guys to production departments and other service departments. Keep repeating the process till you reach the nearest to be. Usually beta I told you that we perform 3 cycles. SD1 का cost SD2 को जाएगा, SD2 to SD1, SD1 to SD2. You will keep doing it. The amount of service department cost will keep reducing as such guys at every step. Trial and error method guys is a copy of repeated redistribution method, just that at every step we do not show how much is the amount that is being allocated to production departments. Instead we only show the amount beta that is being redistributed to the other service department. In the end you will total up all the amounts guys and then transfer the entire amount at once to production department. Just be careful, you do not divide in the ratio, you multiply by percentages. Okay, that is trial and error method. Simultaneous equation again is a copy of trial and error method, just that you're forming 2 equations guys here in order to determine the total amount. जो भी trial and error method में total amount आया था बेटा, same amount you're going to get under simultaneous equation also. While forming equation, be careful. It is not about what you are rendering service better to the other department. It is about what you are receiving from the other department. जैसे यहाँ पे if you see guys, SD1 is rendering 10% service to SD2 while SD2 is rendering 20% service to SD1. When I form an equation for SD1, it will be its own cost plus 20% of SD2. When I form an equation for SD2 as such guys, it will be its own cost plus 10% of SD1. After that, the process is exactly the same as trial and error method. Now, in case there are expenses guys segregated into fixed and variable, at the time of apportionment, remember fixed expenses will be done on the basis of normal capacity, variable expenditure beta will be done on the basis of actual capacity. This they gave only for power generation cost. There were 2 questions, both of them beta had power generation cost, fixed expenditure on the basis of normal capacity, variable expenditure on the basis of actual capacity. Once secondary distribution is done as such guys, you do not have to worry about what is fixed, what is variable, unless we have a separate absorption rate for fixed expenditure, separate absorption rate for variable expenditure. Ye chapter mein utna relevant nahi hai. Are we clear about this guys? Once you're done with secondary distribution of overheads also guys, all the overheads are now forming part under production departments. So after this comes absorption of overheads. For absorption of overheads guys, I said the things that you will have to remember is budgeted versus actual, departmental rate versus blanket rate guys, and then absorption basis. The first thing that we have covered under absorption of overheads beta was absorption basis. Overheads can be absorbed guys, are usually absorbed on the basis of machine hours or labor hours. Why machine hours or labor hours are preferred? They talk about the total time as such beta that you're spending on a resource, on manufacturing of a product. Higher the amount of time that you spend on manufacturing, higher will be the resource utilization, and that is why as such guys, higher should be the share of expenditure. So for apportionment, absorption of overheads as such guys, we normally prefer machine hours or labor hours. Alternatively, you can also do it as a percentage of direct material guys, or as a percentage of direct wages, or as a percentage of prime cost. Now, your recovery rate, that is absorption rate as such guys, is always based on budgeted data. The meaning, you always determine this rate as such beta in advance, predetermined rate. Few organizations may have an actual rate as such beta, but that's difficult to implement because you cannot wait till the end of the year as such beta to arrive at the cost of multiple products. So overhead rate is always predetermined. When you say predetermined, it is always based on budgeted data. So if they give you budgeted details, your budgeted overheads divided by budgeted activity. It can be machine hours, labor hours, direct material, direct wages, prime cost. We do not care about that. That will tell us what is our overhead absorption rate. Once you compute overhead absorption rate, budgeted data is irrelevant. It is no longer relevant. Now, this budgeted details is such guys basis पे overhead absorption rate. You can do it either for all the departments collectively, or you can have different rates for each department. That is blanket rate and departmental rate. Blanket rate beta is wherein you have a single recovery rate for all the departments collectively. Departmental rate beta is wherein you have separate recovery rates for each department. Obviously, what will be preferred? It is always better to implement departmental rate guys. Reason being that under departmental rate is such better, Again, different departments as such guys will have different resource utilizations. Not every product as such but should utilize the same amount of resources in every department or in the same ratio. That is why guys, if one product is taking more time in one department, less time in another department as such guys, the share of expenditure should be based on such proportions only. Isliye it is always better to have departmental rates. Under departmental rate also, if they ask for your advice as such guys, you will have to check whether a department is machine intensive or labor intensive. If it is machine intensive as such guys, you're going to absorb overheads on the basis of machine hours. If it is labor intensive, you're going to do it on the basis of labor hours. Are we clear about this? If they ask us to compute under or over recovery, so once you compute your absorption rate guys, total amount of overheads absorbed will be equal to whatever is your absorption rate multiplied by actual activity. This you're going to compare guys with the amount of overheads incurred. The difference between overheads incurred and overheads absorbed will be under or over recovery of overheads. If you're absorbing less, it is going to result in under recovery. If you're absorbing more, it is going to result in over recovery of overheads. Crystal clear? Once we compute under or over recovery of overheads better, then comes a treatment of under or over recovery. The common method as such guys is wherein we transfer everything to P&L account. There's another method as such guys wherein we analyze as to what resulted in the under or over recovery of overheads. If it is on account of defective planning guys, the entire amount of under recovery will be transferred to P&L account. And if it is on account of over recovery of overheads as such guys, then it will be adjusted to all the units that were manufactured during the year. For you to adjust this as such guys, we will use something called as supplementary rate, which is an additional recovery rate as such guys over and above your basic absorption rate. So your supplementary rate guys will be equal to total amount of under recovery divided by total number of units manufactured. Ye total number of units manufactured mein beta, they can give work in progress units also, but you will have to consider them as equivalent number of completed units. So if they mention 10,000 units, 50% complete, that will be as good as 5,000 completed units. एक बार supplementary rate आ गया बेटा, you will know how much is to be transferred to cost of sales account, how much should be transferred to finished goods account, and how much should be transferred to work in progress account. Now, while calculating this under or over recovery of overheads, in case they give details like strike period wages guys or obsolete stores or prior period expenditure, first remove all of them as such beta from actual overheads incurred, then compare it with the amount of overheads absorbed. Do not directly compare the total amount given in the question. समझ में आ रहा है? Next beta, if they ask us profit implication guys of the methods, there's one more method guys under or over recovery, that is to carry forward the entire expenditure to the next year. In case they ask us guys about the profit implication under method 1 wherein you transfer the entire amount to P&L account as such guys, obviously your profits will get reduced to the extent of the entire amount. Under method 2 guys wherein you're analyzing the reasons, profits will reduce only to the extent guys amount has been transferred to P&L account or has been included in cost of sales account. So basically guys, method 2 will result in a higher profit to the extent amount has been included in inventory valuation. Whatever is the amount included in the value of finished goods, included in the value of work in progress. To that extent beta, our profits are going to be higher. Is that clear? In case guys there's a question to identify overhead recovery rate, remember overhead recovery rate cannot be different for different products. Overhead recovery rates are different for different departments. Irrespective of which product are you manufacturing in that department as such guys, they will be obviously given expenses at the same rate. So agar question is about identification of overhead recovery rate as such guys, you will have to check overheads divided by labor hours, overheads divided by direct wages, overheads divided by whatever other basis given. Jiska bhi amount is constant, that itself beta will become your recovery rate. Is that clear guys? After treatment of under or over recovery, we moved on to the questions of comprehensive machine hour rate. I said comprehensive machine hour rate is the total cost of using a machine as such guys or running a machine for 1 hour. Now the difference as such guys here is that comprehensive machine hour rate also includes all the expenses that are directly identifiable, including wages of operator. That's the primary difference as such guys. So if there's any utility expenditure, if there are any operator wages that are directly identifiable, you're supposed to include it in the computation of your comprehensive machine hour rate. So for comprehensive machine hour rate, all you have to do beta is arrive at the total expenditure that you're going to incur in a year by dividing those expenses into standing charges and running charges. Standing charges are fixed expenses, running charges are variable expenses. Usually beta electricity, power, repairs and maintenance, consumables, all of that will come under running charges, and all the other expenses will come under standing charges. Lately एक दो question में बेटा they've classified depreciation also as a running charge but not as a standing charge. But depreciation is on account of both effects of time and usage, not just on account of usage. So it will always be a question mark as such, guys. So the depreciation will come under fixed expenses or under running charge. But a majority of the portion as such beta is fixed expenditure only, rather than classifying that to be a running charge. Anyways, you will divide your expenses, guys, into these two categories, and then in the end divide by the total number of productive hours. Productive machine hours mein, guys, if there's any maintenance time given, you have to exclude it. Plus, unless otherwise given, setup time is assumed to be productive. Question में कुछ नहीं दिया हुआ है, assume setup to be productive. There was two questions in which beta they've identified, they told us that setup is not productive. In that case, you're going to divide your total expenses only by the amount of operation time. In case the expenses differ for setup and operation, it will always be preferable as such, guys, to compute two different rates. One is for setup time, one will be for operation time. And you will also write, guys, in the end, what if you're computing a single rate, what will be that comprehensive machine hour rate. Is that clear, guys? Yes or no, beta? इसके बाद में we did the concept of different types of capacities, guys. I said rated capacity as such, beta, or maximum capacity, installed capacity, theoretical capacity is the capacity of goods and services that can be manufactured as such, guys, or rendered by utilizing the asset throughout the year. Practically not possible to achieve as such, guys. That is why we have the concept of practical capacity. Practical capacity takes on Sundays, holidays as such, guys, normal idle times into consideration. Normal capacity as such, guys, is what you have been achieving over the past couple of years or what you intend to achieve over a longer period of time. Actual capacity is actual utilization in a given period. The difference between installed capacity and normal capacity will become your normal idle capacity. The difference between normal capacity and actual capacity will become your abnormal idle time. There was also one question that we did in relation to selling and distribution overheads in this chapter, guys, but I said that is more or less like ABC, activity based costing. It is not traditional. Whatever we did in this chapter, but as traditional method of absorbing overheads. In real life, beta, admin overheads and S&D overheads का भी concept है. Admin overheads as such, guys, what we do is we absorb two products on the basis of cost of production. मतलब after cost of production will include another item that will be called as admin overheads. We'll learn all of this in cost sheet. अभी के लिए नहीं बेटा. So there I'll be telling you guys as to how do we treat admin overheads, how do we treat selling and distribution overheads. Are we all clear about this, guys? Yes or no, beta? Chalo guys, that's the end of overheads revision.